They fined me $2,200 for unauthorized landscaping while I was still burying my wife's ashes under the pine we planted together. 14 days later, I found the HOA president hosting a pool party at my lake cabin. Music, drinks, the whole HOA board invited. Welcome to HOA Society. I'm Nathan Cole, civil engineer out of northern Georgia, and if you've ever lost something worth fighting for, you'll understand why I'm telling this. If you're new here, I'd be grateful if you subscribe. It keeps this kind of story alive. And tell me, where are you watching from? I like knowing who else keeps their neighborhood honest. I bought the cabin 5 years ago, before Claire's cancer came back. It sat on 3/4 of an acre, 12 feet from the lake line, grandfathered under pre-'89 setback rules. We spent every summer weekend there, fixing the dock, feeding the geese, and planning a quiet retirement. When she passed, the cabin became more than property. It was a promise kept. I left the city townhouse to my sister and moved out here full-time, away from noise and pity. The Pine Lake Homeowners Association looked friendly at first. Handshakes, potlucks, the usual "we're all one community" brochure talk. But within 6 months, the letters started. A warning for improper fence alignment, 3 inches off code. Then a $200 fine for non-conforming garden fixtures. The flagstones Claire picked out. I paid none of it, just sent polite certified disputes. Then came the landscaping citation. On $200 due in 10 days, or liens may be applied. I wrote back with copies of the deed showing my parcel was listed as Common Exempt A17, a line they'd somehow missed, exempting pre-existing features from new aesthetic ordinances. No reply. 2 weeks later, I drove to the cabin after work and saw the party. Cars lined both sides of the gravel drive, an orange Jeep, a Mercedes SUV, and a Gose. A LF cart loaded with champagne cases. The pool lights pulsed blue over a crowd I didn't recognize. At the center, wearing a coral dress and holding a glass, stood Linda Keene, HOA president, lecturing someone about member privileges. My mailbox flag was down, but inside sat a fresh violation notice. Excessive occupancy. I parked, walked past the open gate, and she turned. "Nathan, you weren't supposed to be back till Sunday." I said nothing for a moment, just looked at my pool deck. "Looks like the place has been busy." Her smile thinned. "We needed a venue for the board mixer. Everyone agreed it was the perfect setting, and you weren't using it. You held a party here, without asking?" "It's community property in spirit," she said, sipping. "You can't just isolate. This is about unity." "Unity," I said. "In my living room?" She laughed lightly, a politician's deflection. "You'll understand once you see what we're building here." I did understand. I saw the invoices later. They'd billed catering as an HOA hospitality outreach expense, $3,482.27, paid from association funds collected through illegal fines. That night, though, I just stood there, looking at the dock's reflection trembling under the pool lights, realizing how far people would reach when no one drew lines. I slept little. The next morning, I drove into town, stopped by the county recorder's office, and pulled every parcel map within the HOA boundary. Took 2 hours, 3 coffees, and a blistered thumb from the copier's warm glass. When I compared the maps to the HOA's online community overlay, they didn't match. Half the amenities, pool, path, and clubhouse, sat on parcels still deeded to the original developer's holding trust. No formal conveyance recorded. Knowledge nugget number 1. In most states, an HOA can only enforce covenants or spend funds on properties it legally owns or has a recorded ease. Meant over. If the transfer never happened, every fine or use of that property becomes ultra-vires, beyond authority. That was my first spark of leverage, though I didn't yet know how hot it would burn. By Thursday, the HOA issued another notice. Failure to respond constitutes admission. They tacked it to my porch rail with a staple gun, 3 punctures in the cedar Claire sanded herself. I left it there as evidence. A neighbor, old Mr. Warren, stopped by with his dog. He was the kind of retiree who still wore a collared shirt to check the mail. "You're not the first," he said, nodding at the notice. "They fined me for wind chimes, said it was audio clutter. I recorded the meeting, legal here, one-party consent, but they don't know that yet." He smiled, wheezing through a laugh. Want a copy? I did. And as we sat on my porch with black coffee steaming between us, the idea formed. You can't fight a machine with outrage. You fight it with paperwork, signatures, and patience. That night I built a spreadsheet. Dates, notices, amounts, and ordinance citations. I color-coded every action, green for legitimate, red for overreach, yellow for pending. It looked like a war map, and somewhere on the edge of that digital battlefield, I circled 3 words: Common Exempt A17. My land wasn't just a property, it was a fault line waiting to shift. Still, I didn't plan revenge. Not yet. What I wanted first was simple acknowledgement, maybe even an apology. Instead, on the next Saturday morning, as I was cleaning the gutters, a patrol car idled at my drive. "Wellness check," the deputy said. "HOA president reported concern for your mental state." That's when the real story began. I asked the deputy if she'd mentioned why she was concerned. He glanced down at the call sheet and shrugged. Said you'd been yelling at neighbors, maybe drinking. I hadn't spoken to anyone all week, and my only bottle was a half-finished Merlot from Claire's birthday. The man's eyes softened when he saw the dust on Song. The cork. "We both know how these calls go," he said quietly. "Keep your head down." After he left, I noted the time, 9:42 a.m., and logged it in my spreadsheet under retaliatory action number 1. A wellness check can be harmless, but it goes in the public record, something an HOA could later cite to question fitness. I understood the tactic. Make you look unstable, then justify every intrusion that follows. That evening, I found a new post on the Pine Lake social feed. Concern for resident Nathan C. Possible hoarding, neglect of property. The photo was my recycling bin left open. 5 likes, 3 comments suggesting I seek help. Linda's name wasn't on it, but the moderator's initials were hers. The next day, I decided to dig deeper. The county clerk confirmed that the original developer, L.B. Marston Properties, dissolved in 2011 without assigning several amenity parcels. They'd reverted to the county's unclaimed property trust, meaning the HOA was hosting parties, charging fees, and collecting dues for facilities it didn't even own. I called a municipal law attorney named Serena Vance, an old acquaintance from my engineering days. She met me at a diner off Route 92, black suit under a denim jacket, legal pads stacked beside her coffee. "This happens more often than you think," she said, tapping a pen. "If the HOA is operating on untransferred land, every expenditure is misappropriation. You could make a criminal referral if you wanted." "I don't want a circus," I said. "I just want them to stop using my property and refund the fines." She smiled faintly. "Then you'll need leverage first." Quietly. We spent 2 hours reviewing statutes. OCGA 443221 through 223, the Georgia Property Owners Association Act. She explained how easements work, how control transfers, how I might acquire the very land under their amenities before they noticed. I left with a plan these that smelled faintly of printer toner and revenge. Knowledge nugget number 2. County auctions often include forgotten parcels linked to dissolved developers. Any individual can bid, and ownership carries the same rights, including enforcement or termination of existing easements once recorded. By Monday, I had the parcel IDs and an auction date. 3 weeks away. If I could quietly acquire Parcel B12, the one hosting the HOA pool and clubhouse, I'd hold the deed to their pride and centerpiece. But first, I needed to survive their retaliation. 2 mornings later, an inspector appeared unannounced. "Anonymous tip," he said. "Possible code violations. Unpermitted deck extension." The deck was 20 years old. He measured, photographed, and promised a report. Within hours, another letter from the HOA arrived. Immediate compliance demanded. I emailed Serena the inspection ID. "They're stacking the deck," she replied. "Document everything. No escalation, just evidence." So I did. I installed 2 security cameras, front gate and porch, clearly marked. I saved every notice, time-stamped photos, even audio logs of delivery knocks, and I started speaking softly into a small recorder whenever I read a letter aloud. Received, 09:12 a.m., tone, threatening. My state's one-party consent law made it perfectly legal, though I never mentioned that to them. A week later, while trimming the hedges, I heard laughter beyond the fence. Linda again, this time with 2 board members, inspecting my property line. I approached calmly. "Morning," I said. She turned, clipboard in hand. "Routine check. We had complaints about unapproved cameras. Could be a privacy violation. They face my driveway," I said. "No view beyond my parcel." "Still," she replied, scribbling. "We'll fine accordingly." That's when I saw the fatigue behind her mascara, a person too used to power to notice its cost. "You're trespassing," I said evenly. She smirked. "Board. Members have inspection rights. Not without notice. Section 7C of your own bylaws." Her pen froze. "You read the bylaws?" "Every word." For the first time, she looked uncertain. She left without another note. Later that night, I shared a beer with Warren on his porch. "They'll keep coming," he said. "They think persistence equals authority." "I'll let them," I answered. "Sometimes the best trap is just letting someone step deeper." He chuckled, dogs snoring between us. "You've got the patience of a surveyor." I thought of Claire, how she used to say, "Measure twice, cut once." I was measuring everything now. Time, words, footsteps. 2 days later, Serena called with news. "That parcel you wanted, B12, it's confirmed for auction. Minimum bid $3,200. You'll need a certified check and 2 witnesses." "I'll be there," I said. Meanwhile, Linda doubled down. The HOA sent me an intent to lien notice. $3,400 total fines, 30 days to pay. I framed it on the wall above my desk. The same amount, almost dollar for dollar, as the parcel's opening bid. The irony made me smile. Before we hung up, Serena asked, "You sure you want to own their pool?" "I don't want to own it," I said. "I want to remind them who actually reads the fine print." In the quiet afterward, I sat by the lake and listened to the frogs. Somewhere behind the trees, the clubhouse music played faintly. Another event, another night of laughter bought with other people's money. I let the sound drift across the water until it dissolved into the dark. If you've ever been bullied by an HOA, tell me your story in the comments. Or if you're one of the rare good ones on a board, say what keeps you honest. Maybe someone scrolling tonight needs to hear it. The following Friday, I walked into the county auction hall with a certified check and a calm pulse. Rows of folding chairs, the smell of old paper and coffee. When parcel B12 came up, only 2 other bidders raised hands, both investors chasing tax lots. I offered $3,600, no counter. The gavel fell in under 10 seconds. A week later, I held the recorded deed. Ownership of B12, 0.42 acres, including improvements, pool, clubhouse. I didn't tell anyone. Instead, I framed the certified copy beside the violation notice on my wall. Evidence meets leverage. 1 red, 1 blue. Now I just needed to let them make one more mistake, on property they no longer owned. It only took them 9 days to hand me the mistake I'd been waiting for. A flyer slid into every mailbox that morning. Summer HOA celebration, free for all members and guests. Saturday, June 11th, 5 p.m., Pool Clubhouse. My pool. My clubhouse. The address printed in 24-point font, bold as arrogance. I didn't confront them immediately. You never interrupt someone digging their own hole. Instead, I spent that week documenting everything. Screenshots of the event post, RSVP list, budget notes from their group email. A neighbor quietly forwarded me Linda's message thread where she bragged about using association funds creatively. I saved each as a PDF. Serena laughed when I told her. "They're advertising a trespass party," she said. "We'll keep the sheriff on standby. You'll want an officer as a neutral authority when you post your notices." Knowledge nugget number 3. Once ownership is recorded and publicly available, any use of that property without the owner's consent becomes trespassing, civil or criminal, depending on state statutes and notice posted. The Friday before the event, I taped 3 laminated signs along the fence. Private property. Trespassers. Subject to prosecution under OCGA 16721. Each sign bore my signature and the county seal from the recorded deed. At sunset, I walked down to the dock, phone flashlight guiding the way, and stapled one final notice to the clubhouse gate. I used stainless staples this time. They don't rust. and they don't lie. By morning, the HOA chat buzzed with confusion. Why are the might resigns? Who changed the locks? Linda posted, ignore the prank. The event proceeds as scheduled. That was fine by me. When Saturday came, the air smelled of charcoal and lake water. Cars rolled in again, music thumping, laughter echoing. I waited until dusk, when the pool lights glowed and everyone's guard was down. Then I drove up the lane, the crunch of gravel cutting through the base. Linda stood near the buffet table, microphone in hand, wearing another coral dress like a trademark. Because at Pine Lake, we believe in community, she said, applause following. I stepped through the open gate, holding a folder under my arm. The chatter faded. A few guests recognized me and stepped back. Evening, I said. Before we continue this celebration, we need to clarify whose community this is. Linda's smile froze. Nathan, you're not authorized to be here. I set the folder on the table, opened it, and pulled out the recorded deed, still crisp from the county clerk's envelope. Funny, I said. I was about to say the same. She blinked at the heading, Grant Deed. Parcel B12, Pool and Clubhouse. Where did you... Purchased at county auction May 27th, I said. Recorded June 3rd. Title clear. You've been hosting events on private property. Mine. The murmurs spread like a breeze across water. Someone whispered, is that real? Linda tried to recover. This can't be valid. The HOA owns this facility by declaration. Then show me the conveyance, I said calmly. Book and page number, please. She hesitated. A man beside her, the treasurer, thumbed his phone nervously. Linda, he muttered. We never... Quiet, she snapped. That's when a sheriff's cruiser pulled up, lights flashing amber. Serena stepped out first, holding a slim binder, followed by Deputy Caldwell, the same officer who'd done my wellness check weeks ago. His nod was subtle, respectful. Evening, folks, he said. We received a courtesy notice from property owner Mr. Cole regarding possible trespassing. Everyone stay calm. I handed him a copy of the deed. He examined it under his flashlight, then turned to Linda. Ma'am, unless you've got paperwork showing otherwise, this is private property now. The microphone in her hand trembled slightly. This is outrageous. We've used this clubhouse for years. And you can continue, I said, once we establish a lease or easement. But tonight, this event is unauthorized. You'll need to vacate. The guests began gathering purses and jackets, murmuring. Someone dropped a plastic cup, the splash punctuating the silence. Linda slammed the mic down. You can't humiliate me like this. Not humiliation, I said softly. Just boundaries, the kind you enforce on everyone else. The deputy gave her a look that said it was over. Let's call it a night, folks. As the crowd dispersed, the music died. Only the pool filter hummed. I stood by the gate watching taillights fade into the trees. Serena joined me. You handled that clean, she said. I wanted witnesses, I replied. You got plenty. Visual beat number 1 was the sound. The hollow slap of the mic against the table and the rustle of papers under the sheriff's light. After they left, I locked the gate, the metal latch clicking like punctuation on a chapter. Driving home, I saw Linda's face still vivid in my mind, shock twisting into anger. I knew it wasn't over. People like her didn't retreat. They regrouped. Sunday morning proved it. My email was flooded with notices, emergency meeting, disciplinary action, potential expulsion, all unsigned but clearly coordinated. They wanted me out before the next dues cycle, to paint me as the villain. Warren came by that evening, dog tugging on the leash. Heard the fireworks, he said. She'll come harder now, I too, will D him. He nodded. Then keep your paperwork tighter. It was already tight. I started compiling everything into labeled binders. Notices, correspondence, evidence, financials. Each tab numbered, cross-referenced to the spreadsheet. Claire used to call me obsessive. Maybe she was right. But this time, obsession was armor. As I worked, I could hear the faint echo of laughter from across the lake. Someone, maybe Linda, pretending nothing had changed. But it had. I'd flipped the power dynamic. And power, once shifted, never goes back quietly. So let me ask you, how far should an HOA's authority reach? Your yard, your pool, your privacy. Where should the line be drawn? Tell me below. I read every comment. even the angry ones. That week, I received a letter not from the HOA, but from their attorney, Anderson Price. Polished language, veiled threats, immediate cessation of interference with association property. Serena smirked when she read it. They're bluffing. We'll reply with your deed and a rental proposal, $1 per year, renewable upon compliance. Compliance with what? I asked. Transparency, she said. We'll make it sting. The reply went out certified mail. 5 pages, polite but lethal. And as the countdown to their annual meeting approached, I knew exactly where reversal number 1 would take me next. The podium they thought belonged to them. The annual meeting fell on June 28th, a humid Tuesday evening that smelled of rain and asphalt. They'd booked the town's recreation hall, neutral ground, thinking it would dilute my presence. I arrived early with Serena and Warren, carrying 2 file boxes marked Public Record and Expenditures. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. A row of folding tables formed the dais for the board. Linda sat at the center, gavel in hand, coral dress again. It was her armor now. Around 60 residents filled the chairs, murmuring as to, "Hey," unfolded agendas. I could feel their eyes flick between us, the quiet buzz of gossip weaving through the air. When the meeting opened, Linda struck the gavel. "We'll begin with disciplinary items," she said. "Mr. Cole has violated multiple provisions, including obstruction of association functions and defamation." I stood. "Before you continue, I have a procedural objection. Under Georgia POA Act 44-3223D, any hearing affecting a member's rights must occur in executive session and cannot proceed while ownership of common facilities is under dispute." She blinked. "This isn't a court." "No," I said, "but it's still subject to law." Serena stepped forward, sliding a document onto the table. "We've filed notice of ownership with the county. Any vote tonight related to Parcel B12 is legally void." Gasps rippled across the room. Linda tried to recover, voice tightening. "You can't hijack this meeting." "I'm not hijacking," I said evenly. "I'm reporting." I opened the first file box and began distributing copies of HOA expense reports, pulled via records request, annotated in red ink. "Page 3, I told the crowd. "Hospitality outreach, $3,482.27 for a pool event held on property they didn't own. Page 7, landscaping contract awarded to the treasurer's brother, no competitive bid." The murmurs swelled into outrage. Someone near the back shouted, "Is that true?" Another voice, "That's our dues money." Linda banged the gavel, but her hand trembled. "These are distortions." "Then explain the missing receipts," I said, "or the HOA debit charges at the liquor store on April 12th. You can deny me, but not the math." Knowledge nugget number 4. In most jurisdictions, homeowners have a statutory right to inspect association records under open records provisions of the state POA or nonprofit corporation acts. Failure to provide them can constitute fiduciary breach. Serena leaned toward me. "She's unraveling," she whispered. I looked across the crowd, faces shifting from doubt to realize it. Ocean. The meeting had changed temperature. Linda drew a breath, voice cracking. "This is slander. Nathan Cole is an angry man exploiting loopholes." That's when Warren stood up, voice rough but clear. "He's the only one keeping receipts. You fined me for a birdhouse, $300. You ever file that?" The room erupted, half questions, half indignation. Linda's gavel hits turned frantic. "Order! Order!" I waited for the noise to crest, then spoke quietly into the microphone. "I'm not here to destroy Pine Lake. I'm here to restore it. We can have oversight, transparency, and still have community, but not like this." A younger resident, a mother I'd seen pushing a stroller, raised her hand. "So what happens now?" Serena took the mic. "Now we let the law breathe. Mr. Cole's ownership stands. The board will need to negotiate a lawful use agreement or vacate the facilities. In the meantime, an audit is advisable." The treasurer muttered, "We can't afford an audit." "You already paid for 3 barbecues," someone shot back. Linda slammed the gavel again, voice shrill. "Meeting adjourned." I gathered my papers. As I walked out, I could feel the eyes of the crowd following. Not hostile anymore, just thoughtful. Outside, rain had started, soft at first, then heavier. The scent of wet concrete mixed with pine. I breathed it in. Serena closed her umbrella beside the car. You realize she'll retaliate again. I'm counting on it, I said. People show their truest selves when cornered. And retaliate she did. Within 48 hours, the HOA's website posted a banner. Emergency assessment proposal. $500 per household for legal defense fund. The move was desperate and illegal without a 2/3 vote. I spent the next nights logging calls from neighbors, confused, angry, frightened. I told them to stay calm, to keep records. Truth stacks slow, I said, but it stacks. One evening, while updating the spreadsheet, I paused at Claire's photo on my desk. Her smile was half crooked, same as the day she talked me into buying this cabin. I whispered, I'm still keeping it safe, you know. Outside, thunder rolled across the lake. In the reflection on the glass, the violation notices framed on my wall looked almost ceremonial, symbols of persistence. By the weekend, I got wind that Linda planned a closed-board emergency session. No notice to residents, no agenda posted. Warren overheard the treasurer in the post office. She's drafting cease and desist letters, maybe even filing for injunction. Perfect, I thought. Overreach writes its own ending. But still, I kept my cool. No online rants, no escalation. I wanted the next move documented, not dramatized. Every day I logged timestamps, kept recordings, and prepared for what I called in my notes the reversal window. How far should an HOA control what happens beyond your door? Paint color? Pool use? Your mailbox height? Tell me below where you'd draw the line, because that's exactly what I was about to redraw for them, legally, publicly, and permanently. The rain finally broke the following Wednesday. I looked out across the lake and saw a maintenance crew unloading chlorine drums at my pool. The HOA was back, operating as if nothing had changed. That's when I knew the set piece was close. They came at dawn that Friday. White truck marked Pine Lake Maintenance. 3 men in reflective vests unloading drums and hoses through the side gate. I watched from my porch through the drizzle. They had the gall to drill into the pool pump housing like it was still theirs. I walked down, camera in hand, recording quietly. "Morning, gentlemen," I said. "Who authorized this?" "Board directive," one replied without looking up. "Got a work order?" He hesitated. Linda Keene signed off. "Press it." "I ate it," I said. "Keep those papers handy. Sheriff will want to see them." That line must have carried, because they packed up in silence, leaving hoses coiled like abandoned snakes. By noon, a new violation notice hit my inbox. Subject line, dangerous conduct, threats toward HOA contractors. Attached was a blurred screenshot from my driveway camera, me holding my phone, captioned aggressive behavior. I forwarded it straight to Serena. "They're escalating," she wrote back. "Document, don't react, and get a fireproof box for the originals." That evening, I bought one from the hardware store, black steel, combination lock. As I placed the deeds, receipts, and photos inside, the clink of metal on metal sounded final, like sealing evidence before trial. Knowledge nugget number 5. Retaliation through false reports or selective enforcement can establish a pattern of harassment under both state consumer protection and fair housing statutes, particularly if the conduct targets a whistleblower or protected activity. The pattern was clear. 3 new citations over the weekend. Mailbox light too bright. Lawn overgrown by 2 inches. Unapproved vehicle. Utility trailer. Each dated within 24 hours. Warren laughed when he saw them. "You could frame those next to the first batch," he said. But I didn't laugh, because Monday morning while I was at work, someone entered my property. The cameras caught it, a man in a gray hoodie removing the private property sign from the fence. He looked straight at the lens before walking off. I called Caldwell, the deputy. "You again," he said, sighing but not dismissive. "Got footage?" "Clear as daylight." He came out within the hour, watched the clip and nodded. "We'll log it as trespass and vandalism. Want to press charges?" "Not yet," I said. "I want them to keep walking toward the line." He gave me a long look. "You're playing chess. Just remember they might throw rocks." The next few days blurred into a harassment montage. Car tires punctured, anonymous complaint to zoning about unpermitted occupancy, even a Facebook rumor that I was armed and unstable. My boss at the engineering firm called me in. "You okay, Nate? HR got a tip from a resident claiming you're under investigation." "I'm fine," I said, documenting everything. But that night, I sat on the porch staring at Claire's pine tree, wind flicking rain off its needles. For the first time, fear slipped in, not for my job, but for what they might do if I wasn't home. I texted Serena, "Think I need cameras facing the road." She replied, "Already ordered, my treat. Call it professional curiosity." That small gesture steadied me. I spent the next week gathering my allies tighter. Warren for community credibility, Serena for legal firepower, and now a quiet third, Marcus Hensley, a former county inspector who'd retired 2 years earlier. He met us at the diner, a thick folder under his arm. "I ran some cross-checks," he said, opening it. "HOA's pool permit expired last August. No renewal, no inspection. If they drained and refilled since, that's a violation of County Code Section 14-212. Serena whistled. "Operating a public pool without permit, that's a fine per day." "Or per event," Marcus added, eyes twinkling. I stared at the documents, the black and white clarity of government ink. This was it, the piece I hadn't known I was waiting for. Reversal number 1 was fully armed. I owned the land. They lacked a permit. The next party would be their undoing. But first, I had to survive until then. That week, the harassment peaked. HOA cars idled outside my driveway at night, headlights aimed at my windows. Someone left a dead fish on my porch, small but the smell was deliberate. I bagged it, logged the time, 11:47 p.m., filed under intimidation incident number 7. On Thursday, Serena called. "Are you sure you still want to play this slow?" "Absolutely," I said. "When the hammer drops, it'll be lawful, public, and final." That night, Warren walked over with his old thermos of coffee. "You remind me of a guy who rebuilt his barn after every storm," he said. "One day the wind gave up first." I smiled, weary. Hope the wind here learns faster. For anyone watching who's been fined, stalked, or shamed by an HOA, how did you fight back? Court, counsel, or just endurance? Drop your answer below, or at least like the video so this story reaches others fighting the same storm. The call came Friday afternoon. "Linda's planning a July 4th celebration," Warren said, breathless. "They're already advertising fireworks and live music at the pool." Perfect. I marked the date on my calendar, highlighted in red, July 4th, public set piece. Serena's reply was a single line, "I'll bring the inspector and the deputy." That night, I polished the binder edges, printed every relevant statute, and tucked the recorded permit violations on top. The pages smelled faintly of toner and certainty. Then I closed the fireproof box and listened to the metal latch click. The sound echoed through the cabin, steady, final. By the morning of July 4th, the lake air carried that thick sweetness of barbecue smoke and humidity. You could hear laughter across the water long before you saw the crowd. Pine Lake's idea of patriotism filtered through HOA control. Red, white, and blue bunting strung along my fence like stolen colors. I parked 2 blocks away, walked the path quietly. The sound of speakers thumping country pop rolled over the hill. Linda's voice cut through the music, amplified and self-assured. "Welcome, everyone. We're proud to celebrate another year of community progress." Progress. That word alone nearly made me laugh. I waited until the food line formed, then waved toward the parking lot. Serena arrived in her gray sedan, crisp as always, followed by Deputy Caldwell and Marcus carrying a clipboard thick with inspection sheets. We kept it simple. 1 car, 3 witnesses, a plan timed down to the minute. At 6:00 p.m., as fireworks trailers unloaded by the pool gate, I stepped forward. The gravel crunched beneath my boots, a sound that silenced even the music for a beat. Linda turned, smile tightening like a purse string. "Oh, look who's here," she said into the microphone. "The man who thinks he owns our neighborhood." "I don't think," I said, loud enough for the nearest circle to hear. "I know." Caldwell lifted a hand. "Evening, folks. We're here to verify compliance with county permits." Linda's confidence faltered. "We've had this event every year." Marcus cut her off, tone professional. "Permit expired last August. No renewal filed. Operating a pool without current certification violates County Code 14-212 subsection C. That's a $500 fine per day, ma'am." She turned pale. "You can't be serious." He produced the folder, seal embossed in blue. Signed by County Health on June 30th, official notice. I handed Caldwell the second set of documents, deed, timeline, and my prior trespass report. He scanned them, nodded once, then faced the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, you'll need to vacate the pool area immediately. This property is privately owned and currently unpermitted for public use. The crowd's laughter died instantly. A few parents scooped up children. Plastic cups clattered against concrete as people backed away from the water. Linda gripped the mic. This is an ambush. No, I said calmly. It's accountability. Her voice cracked. You set this up. You set the date. Visual beat number 2 happened right then. The American flag bunting sagging under the drizzle while the deputy taped a bright orange closed by order of county health sign to the gate. The papers slapped wetly against metal, a sound I'll never forget. People filmed with their phones. Some asked questions. Is this legal? One man muttered. Serena answered, voice even. Completely. Public health enforcement, notarized deed, recorded ownership, every step by the book. Linda's husband, red-faced and sweating, tried to pull the sign down. Caldwell stepped between them. Touch that, and it's obstruction of an officer. He froze, then stepped back. Linda's voice shrank to a whisper. You ruined everything. No, I said. You ruined trust. The storm broke then, literal rain pelting the pavement as guests scattered for their cars. Within 15 minutes, the pool deck emptied, leaving only us, the deputy's cruiser lights reflecting off the wet concrete. Serena closed her binder with a soft snap. Reversal number 1 complete, she said under her breath. I stared at the shuttered clubhouse, the bunting half detached and fluttering like surrender flags. They'll call an emergency meeting by tomorrow, I said. Good, she replied. That's where we finish it. As we packed up, Warren appeared from across the street, umbrella in one hand, his dog tugging the other way. Heard the fireworks got canceled, he said, grin crooked. More like postponed until further notice. He nodded approvingly. You lit a different kind of fire tonight. On the drive home, the windshield wipers kept time with the thoughts in my head. I wasn't celebrating, not exactly. The adrenaline had faded, leaving something quieter, resolve mixed with fatigue. The fight had never really been about winning property. It was about showing them they weren't above the rules they used to humiliate others. I set the fireproof box back on the shelf, wiped the rain from my hands, and stared at Claire's photo. Almost there, I told her. Later that night, an email pinged. HOA special session notice, 9:00 a.m. next day. Urgent governance matter. They would try to regroup, to salvage what authority they could. But the dominoes were already lined up, each marked with its own citation and timestamp. And I was going to push the first one with nothing more than a clause and a calm voice. For those of you watching, if an HOA broke the law on your property, would you buy leverage or sue outright? Tell me below. It's not hypothetical for many of us. By morning, the humidity hung thick, sky bruised with leftover storm clouds. I drove toward the community center where the urgent session was set. The parking lot was half full, faces tense behind windshields. I stepped out, folder in hand, and watched Linda pace by the doorway with her board members whispering around her like anxious jurors. It was time for the public showdown. The community center's fluorescent lights buzzed like hornets when I walked in. Folding chairs lined the walls, half the neighborhood already there, whispers cutting through the air. A banner read, Special Session, Emergency HOA Governance Review. Linda stood at the front, hair pulled tight, eyes bloodshot from a sleepless night. The coral dress was gone, navy blazer now, armor traded for defense. I sat near the back with Serena and Warren. Marcus leaned against the wall, clipboard tucked under his arm. Caldwell waited near the exit, arms folded, there only as observer. His presence alone said this wasn't business as usual. Linda banged the gavel once, voice clipped. We'll come to order. As you're all aware, recent events have put this association in legal jeopardy due to an unfortunate misunderstanding regarding property ownership and permits. I raised an eyebrow. Misunderstanding. That was her first spin. She continued. However, after consulting counsel, we believe there may be grounds to challenge the deed transfer on procedural irregularities. Therefore, tonight's vote will authorize our attorney to initiate litigation. Serena stood smoothly. Point of order. Under Article 6, Section 4 of your own bylaws, any legal action requiring assessment of funds must receive a 2/3 vote of the full membership, not just this board. Gasps flickered through the room. Warren whispered, "That's game over before the gavel drops." Linda's jaw clenched. "This isn't open floor." "Actually," Serena said, "it is. You issued an open invitation notice under the state POA Act, so if we're here, we speak." I rose. "Before you vote, I'd like to clarify something for the record." She sighed. "Go ahead, Mr. Cole. Make it quick." I walked to the front, my folder under one arm, set it gently on the table, and flipped open the first page. "I understand fear. You're losing control of something you thought was yours. But this isn't about power. It's about stewardship. You can't lead by intimidation and call it governance." Murmurs rose again. I pointed to the documents. "What you all don't know is that last night the county clerk filed the HOA's permit violations as continuing infractions. That's $1,000 a day until rectified. And since the property is now private, those penalties attach directly to the association's operating account." Linda froze. "That's impossible." I slid a printed email across the table, time-stamped, official seal visible. From the Environmental Health Division, filed 7:42 p.m. Serena spoke next, calm as a surgeon. "You're hemorrhaging money, Ms. Keene. If this board sues Nathan, you'll compound damages, trigger DO insurance review, and invite a civil audit. Or," she paused, eyes sweeping the room, "you can negotiate a reform agreement tonight, one that keeps the HOA alive." The treasurer leaned in, whispering urgently, "Linda, our coverage already flagged the claim. They'll drop us." I could almost see the gears grinded. And her head. She turned to me, voice brittle. "What do you want?" "Transparency," I said. "Term limits, open votes, public audits, and an ethics committee chosen by the residents. In exchange, I'll lease the pool and clubhouse back to the HOA for $1 a year and waive the current penalties once compliance is verified." The room fell silent. "That's blackmail," she hissed. "It's a reform deal," Serena countered. "Entirely lawful. Or we can let the county handle the closure, and you can explain to every homeowner why their dues went to court costs." For a long minute, Linda stared at the papers, the veins at her temple pulsing. Finally, she said, "We'll recess for 10 minutes." People broke into hushed clusters. Warren nudged me. "You sure she'll bite?" "She'll choke if she doesn't," I said quietly. Outside, thunder rumbled again, distant but steady, like punctuation for everything that had happened. Through the glass door I could see Linda hunched over with the treasurer and secretary, whispering furiously. At one point, she looked directly at me. Anger still there, but beneath it, exhaustion. When she finally returned, her voice was quieter. "We'll agree in principle, pending formal review by council." Serena nodded. "That's acceptable. We'll draft it as a memorandum of understanding." Caldwell stepped forward, confirming aloud for the minutes. "Board agrees to pursue reform terms as outlined." Agreement noted. The neutral authority stamp, the audible validation. The crowd burst into scattered applause, half relief, half disbelief. Warren clapped me on the shoulder. "You just turned a firing squad into a handshake." But the real moment came when Linda set down the gavel. The wood hit the table softly, without anger. "Meeting adjourned," she said. "No glare this time, just fatigue." As people filed out, a few neighbors came up to me, one woman with gray hair, tears in her eyes. "I thought you were just causing trouble," she said. "Now I get it. Thank you." I smiled, unsure what to do with gratitude that raw. "Just keeping the lights on," I said. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the asphalt shining under the street lamps. Serena exhaled. "That's reversal number 2 in motion. We'll lock it down in writing tomorrow." I nodded. "Then we start healing. For anyone watching, when authority crosses the line, do you fight to dismantle it or reform it from within? Tell me below. I want to know which side you'd stand on when it's your neighborhood, your peace, your home." As we drove off, the reflection of the community center lights rippled in the puddles, like the neighborhood itself, fractured but finally still. I didn't feel triumphant, just clean. Back at the cabin, I opened the window and let the cool air drift in. Across the lake, the dark outline of the clubhouse stood quiet under the moonlight. Tomorrow it would reopen under new rules, new eyes, maybe even new trust. And I still had one more thing left to say, to the camera, to the people who'd followed this far, to Claire's memory most of all. I set the camera on the windowsill, the red recording light reflecting faintly in the glass. The lake behind me was still, fog curling over the surface like quiet applause. My reflection looked tired but steadier than I'd seen in years. The funny thing about law, I said softly, is that it only works when someone's willing to read the fine print out loud. By dawn, Serena had the memorandum drafted, 8 clauses signed by all 5 board members, notarized at the county clerk's office. Term limits, 2 years max. Open records policy, mandatory. Annual financial audits by independent CPA. Ethics committee of residents, not board. In exchange, the lease, $1 per year, renewable every July 1st, as long as compliance stayed verified. It wasn't revenge anymore. It was reform. The HOA would survive, but not untouched. Within a week, the county lifted the closure order. The pool reopened, legally this time, with posted permits and a new sign that made me grin every time I saw it. Operated by Pine Lake HOA, under lease from property owner. Those last 4 words were mine, black on white, like punctuation at the end of a long argument. A local paper picked it up. Engineer turns tables on HOA, transparency deal signed. The article ran with a photo of me shaking hands with Linda. Her smile looked strained, but it was there. "We've learned from this," she told the reporter. And maybe she had. Knowledge nugget number 6. When an HOA enters a consent agreement or reform deal, it becomes part of the association's public record. Any future violation exposes not just the individuals, but the corporate entity itself to statutory penalties. The domino collapse spread quietly after that. The treasurer resigned first, citing stress and personal reasons. 2 more board members followed. Insurance reviewed their claim history and dropped the policy for risk exposure. A new election brought in residents I actually trusted, Warren among them. He laughed as he signed his name. "Never thought I'd run for anything again," he said, "but someone's got to keep the ship straight." We began fixing things that had gone neglected for years. Broken lights, cracked sidewalks, neglected drainage by the east lot. No new special assessments, no intimidation letters, just volunteers and transparency. I helped draft the first community access charter, the promise that every homeowner could see where each dollar went. Visual beat number 3 came a few weeks later, under an autumn sky. We gathered by the lake for a small ceremony. The same dock where Claire and I used to sit was now fitted with a bronze plaque, for those who kept faith in fairness. The wind picked up, catching the edges of the flag overhead, and for the first time in months, I felt peace rather than defiance. As part of the agreement, the HOA voted to dedicate 1% of annual dues to a neighborhood legal awareness fund, free seminars for homeowners on rights, records, and procedures. Marcus would teach the first class. Serena would advise. Linda, surprisingly, agreed to attend. "Might as well learn what almost burned us down," she said. Caldwell stopped by one evening to return my old evidence binder. "Thought you'd want this back," he said. "Case closed." I flipped through it, pages yellowed at the edges, ink smudged from humid nights. "Guess it's history now." He smiled, more like precedent. A month later, the Pine Lake newsletter included a new section, Transparency Corner, and right under it, a short note from Linda herself. "Our community is stronger when we hold ourselves accountable. Thanks to those who reminded us what that means." The past months had carved something into me, a patience forged from paperwork, a belief that justice doesn't shout, it documents. If you believe I fought the right way and this is how it should end, say a few words in the comments for your friend who's still fighting their HOA battle. Subscribe so the next story finds you first, and if you can, share this one. Because someone out there needs proof that the rules can still protect the good guys. By winter, the pine tree where I buried Claire's ashes stood taller, needles catching the morning frost. I hung a small wooden tag from one branch, engraved with a single word, home. I'd kept my promise. What changed after? The county inspector now attends every HOA annual review. The legal seminars grew so popular they opened to nearby communities. Pine Lake's dues dropped by 15% after the audit cleared waste, and every summer, on July 4th, they hold the Clare Cole Community Day, a quiet event by the pool, free for everyone, no permits forgotten. Sometimes I still hear the old echo of that microphone dropping on the pool table, that hollow slap marking the moment everything shifted. But now it feels like rhythm, like the sound of order restored. Next case, there's always another one waiting across a fence line somewhere. And I'll be there, with a notary stamp, a calm voice, and the patience to let the law do what it was meant to.